Hello, my friend. How are you? I hope you're having an outstanding day. This is Heather. This is the Back to Me podcast. This is episode number 124, and I'm talking with Tanya Biddle all the way from Australia. That's pretty far away. When I was talking to her, it was the next day. So that's always pretty exciting to find out the future. But we're talking about the future. We're talking about, and this is so important, that by putting yourself first, you can actually be able to balance out your whole life, your family, take care of your family, take care of everything if you are taking care of yourself. So let's talk about how to give yourself permission to be number one on your to-do list, and let me know what you think. Take care. Hi, my friends. Welcome. This is the Back to Me podcast, and this is Heather, and I am super excited that you're here. You are going to hear some tips and some tricks and some ideas to help you live your happiest and healthiest self. I call it Back to Me because when you are taking care of yourself, back to me, then you can take better care of others, and we can all make the world a better place. This is Wellness Your Way, and I am super happy that you're here. I almost forgot. I just wanted to jump back in and let you know that I am having a free masterclass on March the 29th at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And it is the 6 keys to unlocking your best life. So if you want to have some quick actionable items that can really help you get a handle on where you need to focus your attention and some first steps to get you going, join me at that free masterclass. The link is in the show notes, and I will hope to see you there soon. Take care, my friend. Hello, my friend. Welcome. I hope you're having an outstanding day. This is Heather. This is the Back to Me podcast. This is the super amazing Friday edition of the podcast, which is my celebrity chat, which means I'm going to talk to an awesome human. And that is my favorite day of the week, as you know. And this week, the awesome human is Tanya, more than a mama. I love that. Does the more stand for something, by the way? Or do you just like...
I have tried in the past to come up with some fancy acronym, but no, not so far. Just
we
more.
could brainstorm
Just
that
more.
later. We can brainstorm that later.
We'll ask for feedback.
Yeah, exactly. So Tanya, thank you, by the way, for... I guess you got up a little bit early for this.
No, that's okay. Yep, it's a beautiful Saturday morning here on the Gold Coast in Australia, so I don't want to miss it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And what is more than a mama, by the way? What is that all about?
It's a reminder. More than a mama is a reminder to all the mums out there that there is more to your life, there is more to you than the sacrifice and suffering that we have convinced ourselves is necessary to be a mother. So right. It's just about, there is more to you as a person, there is more to your life, there is more for you to do than to just be the mama.
And I always ask this question because I always find it interesting, because there's always a story that comes with it of like, what brought you into this business, this, you're helping moms put themselves ahead first, and what brought you to that?
It was a combination of my own experience of putting myself at the bottom of my to-do list as pretty much as soon as I met my husband. Like, making him happy was my only priority. And then, of course, when the children came along, it was the same for them. What I didn't realize at the time was that I was I had convinced myself that I was, the lowest priority, but I was also teaching them that was where I belonged as well.
Right.
And so then, it becomes a real vicious cycle. You're stuck in this place where you believe you're the least important person in the family, and you're teaching your family exactly the same thing. And after doing that for many, many years and lying awake wondering, is this it? It's like Groundhog Day. Every day is exactly the same. You come last, you go without, and it's a combination of, believing that that's what I should do as a mum, and society's belief that that's what you should do as a mum. Everything is put on hold so that you can be the most amazing mum that you can be. And also, spending time with other mothers, standing on the sidelines of my children's sport and hearing them saying the same sort of thing that I was saying to myself. It was, and it's probably one mum in particular that really sort of kicked me into, wanting to be a life coach. And she was a mum. She only had one child, but she worked full time. And she's like, I've always wanted to write children's books, or to write poetry for children. And I've even got a friend who's an illustrator. And I'm like, why don't you do that? She's like, oh, I've got my son and I've got my husband. And like, I didn't recognize that person was me as well. I was staring into a mirror, and I couldn't recognize that at the time. But I was absolutely furious for her. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. That is not an excuse. Like, why don't you do that for yourself? But, I was doing exactly the same thing that she was doing. And so that was really what fired me into sort of being a life coach, and going through my own process of personal development and rediscovery, and wanting to be more than a mama and more than a partner as well. And so, so it was going through my own journey and then wanting to help other women to make that change as well.
Right. And it is very true. And it's interesting, like you said, you were teaching your family that that's what your place was, but you also, in some ways, like you're teaching your daughters that this is your lot in life, my dear. And oh my gosh, I was always a bit apparently stubborn when I was a little kid, and I wouldn't do what people told me to do. So I would have stood back and go, forget it. And maybe that's why, it's because I didn't have children. And that might be why I decided not to have children, because I saw what happened. I went, I'm not doing that. And if I have to give up being my independent self by becoming a mom, forget it. I'm out. Psh, right? But it is true. Like, you can see it every day. The poor, stressed out soccer moms racing back and forth, trying to get kids to this, trying to get kids to that. And they are always last.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I mean, how do you help people reorganize their priorities?
There's a lot of delving into like their self-limiting beliefs. Like, I think it all comes, like, it's multi-generational. Like, I know that, it's a stigma. Like my mum, she definitely put herself last for us. And what you say is true, with the lessons that we're teaching our children, and my daughter, that was one of the big things that, that kicked me forward, is like, I don't want my daughter to think, to end up in the same situation that I'm sitting in. Here I am lying awake crying most nights because I'm absolutely miserable. I don't want her to do that. And I don't want my boys, I've got 2 adult boys, I don't want them to think that as soon as they have a girlfriend, they're set. Like, they don't have to do anything for themselves, and they, their priorities come first.
Right.
So when it comes to, working with my clients, it's really a matter of changing that belief system for themselves, helping them to realize that they are worthy, of having time for themselves, and they are allowed to say no to their loved ones, and helping them to rediscover who it is they are. Like, do you remember who you were before you had children? What did you like to do? What were the dreams and the plans that you had? And let's like breathe some life into those. And it's helping them also to understand that it's not a choice between being a mum and being an empowered woman. It's doing both, finding your own unique balance so that you can do both.
Right. And it's, you can, I often, when I talk to people, I talk about, and it's not always moms, because I talk about finding a balance between all of the parts of your life, and you don't exclude one. So I usually, when I talk about work-life balance, because people are trying to carve this piece of their life off to the side and create balance. I'm like, well, your work is part of your life. So, your work, or professional, your physical health, your relationships are important to your financial, emotional, spiritual. I talk about 6 of them.
Yeah.
And it is so true. I mean, you can be happy with all of the parts, but they have to be in a good balance with each other. And I've always felt like it was like, where do you place what is the most valuable thing to you? What do you value? Do you value,
Yeah.
you know, relationships, family, health, all these things? And then where are you putting your priorities? So I can see people could get a bit hung up there now that I'm saying it out loud, that if they say their number one priority is their children, and they put all their value is on their children, then they aren't valuing themselves, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And maybe that's what you were talking about with the what did you call it? Mindset? No.
Your
Uh,
beliefs.
yes, limiting beliefs. There it is.
Yeah.
Thank you for remembering what you said. I did warn you in the beginning that I tend to get lost and go on a tangent, right?
Yeah. Yes.
They're used to that. The listeners are used to that. And it's interesting also because I think I just thought of the empty nest syndrome. I mean,
Yeah.
people forgot who they were, and maybe they never got to find out who they were
Yeah.
before they got married and had kids. And
Yeah.
then suddenly they're gone. And what do you do with yourself?
Yeah. Yeah. That's exactly right. Because um, you realize when you're at that stage that you've had no purpose other than being a mother,
Right.
and then what is there left to do? So I think it's with the women that I work with, it's getting into their mind, getting into their heart before they reach that place. So when those little windows of time start appearing, when their kids are in high school, when they're sort of 10, 12, and for better or worse, they're starting to spend more time on their devices or more time with their friends, or they're more independent. They don't need that constant supervision anymore. Those little windows of time, start appearing and sometimes go unrecognized. And we sort of try and make ourselves busy in those times doing other things. And so that's the time. They're the windows of opportunity to actually, spend some time rediscovering what it is that you enjoy doing. Like, is there a hobby that you want to take up? Is there a side hustle you want to start? Is there some study that you've always wanted to do? So that's what I help the mums do, is recognize that those windows of opportunity are starting to open up. And instead of, grabbing a glass of wine and scrolling through Instagram on your phone, let's do something that is absolutely going to light you up. Because like you said, with the 6 areas of our lives that we focus on, the engine room, like the most important part of that, the nucleus, is us. Like,
Mhm.
we're the ones that are feeding into each of those areas of our lives. We can't show up as a valued employee unless we nurture ourselves, and we can't be an amazing partner and mother unless we nurture ourselves. So that self-care is vitally important for every area of our lives.
And self-care looks different for everyone, right? I mean, I think sometimes people get caught up in that, oh, that means I have to go to the spa or something. But for like maybe self-care, like for me, self-care is just going laying down for a minute. Really, I'm allowed to rest.
Yeah.
Yes. And I used to not do it. So I was talking to a mama this week actually, and she calls herself a mompreneur. So she has a business and she has kids. So I said, it's like you got 3 kids. You got your husband, your kids, and your business kid. And where do you fit on that? And, you know, I used to fight with napping. Even when I was a little kid, I never wanted to nap. I don't know, it's the stubborn side of me. But when I suddenly realized that it was actually pretty awesome to nap, but to train myself to get used to it, I had to go. I would lie down. I would say to myself, "I'm allowed to rest right now, and I'm going to let myself have 20 minutes." And if I would, what I would say is, I'll look at the clock in 5 minutes, and if I'm not asleep, I'm allowed to get up. But I would never, because I would fall asleep because I was tired. But it was
Yeah.
so funny that I had to go through that process to give myself permission to lay down and take a nap and get rid of the stubborn kindergartner who thought, well, this is a waste of time napping. We should be playing. But um, I think that the exercise, there it is, exercise of giving yourself permission is so
Yeah.
powerful.
Yeah.
And then do
Absolutely.
it.
And yeah, that's exactly right. And that's definitely what I picked up on, like when you were speaking, is that permission. We do not give ourselves permission. And then I think what we do is we project that lack of permission onto other people, because we don't acknowledge that, realistically, like, our families aren't saying, no, you're not allowed to rest, you're not allowed to do things for yourself. We're telling ourselves that, but we end up projecting it onto other people, saying, well, I have to do everything for everyone, and you guys need me to do this. And in a sense, sort of sense, that is true, because that's what we've trained them to do.
Right.
But the permission piece definitely comes from within first. We need to, like you said, we need to train ourselves that it is okay to look after ourselves. And when you've been in that process, that habit of denying yourself rest or time or, self-care, it's a hard habit to break. And it's like you said, like, give yourself 20 minutes to have a lie down, and you kind of have to force yourself, like you would a toddler, like, no, you're going to have a lie down now.
Yeah, I did in the beginning. Now I'm better at it. Like, you can
Yeah.
retrain yourself. It's okay. Even old
Yeah,
dogs can learn their
absolutely.
tricks. And it's interesting you were talking about the windows of time, because um your kids are becoming, and maybe this is a hard thing. I don't know. Maybe it's a hard thing. Your kids are becoming their own people,
Yeah.
and that has to be allowed to happen.
Yeah.
So I know moms who can't stop being moms and not letting their kids become people, independent people. So then that's like even a bigger cycle of putting yourself at the bottom, because you're not even letting them develop.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's, I mean, I guess that's you're so used to that. I have to keep doing it. You don't know how to stop and
Yeah.
step away.
Yeah.
And I remember reading, it was in a book that I read that will come back to me at some point. It might have been in Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. And she at one point didn't know what to do with herself, because I can see, I've had some coaching clients who were just like, I'm stuck, but I don't know what to do,
Mm.
because their standard mode of practice was always doing, 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 doing.
Yeah.
And then when they don't know what to do, they're lost. So her approach was just something, curiosity. So if I guess this might be something that you use, and you can talk more to it, but if they've never explored who they are and they don't even know where to start, just be curious about something, right?
Mm.
And then follow that trail, and without caring where it goes. That's the best part.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's like an adventure into sort of, who you are and what you like to do. With my clients, I like to start with, okay, so let's go back to, what did you want to be when you grew up? Like, when you're a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up? And why? Why was that appealing to you? What is it that's interesting or exciting about that? And so let's look at, well, what feeds off into that? And then and you just sort of give them those little hints, little little glimmers of paths that they could possibly follow. And I tend to find that that sparks their own curiosity. They're like, oh, and then they'll just go wandering down a path, and so we follow and we see where it goes, and then it'll lead off somewhere else. And it's like, well, I've always wanted to do that. And I'm like, okay, so now we have a few little actions or steps to help you, rediscover what is interesting, what lights you up, what gives you, heaps of joy and a bit of a buzz, and then it just starts, and then it tends to snowball. It's like, I did that, and no, I didn't like it as much as I thought I would, and okay, but now I've met this person and they do that, and so it's just giving them that little, it's like giving them a flashlight in a dark tunnel. It's like, oh, what's right in front of you here? We just need to find out what's right in front of you.
Right. And it's a different way of thinking too, because if you've always been of the outcome mindset, right?
Yeah.
So that goes back to permission again. You don't have to get anywhere in particular when you're being curious. And that's the great thing about curiosity is you don't have to do anything in particular. We're just looking around.
Yeah.
Window shopping.
That's it. Window shopping for a better future.
Window shopping for interesting life things to think. I personally have too many. I have to prune some of them sometimes, or put some of them on the shelf and tell them I'll go back to them later.
Yeah.
But I know that sometimes it's hard if you've been so engrossed in something that when you come out of it, you just, I don't know what to do.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly right. Where we're creating results for other people. It's like, my child needs to be at this sport at this time. That's the goal. And so, you do whatever you can do. You sacrifice whatever you need to sacrifice to make sure that that goal is reached. And then the next goal is dinner has to be on the table at this time. And so, like you said, it's all results. We're all results based. And it's just, we get into this routine of, you go through the motions to get other people the results that they need so that their life runs smoothly. But like you said, we deny ourselves the adventure of rediscovery.
It'd be interesting to take a survey of the sidelines of the kids sports games. Whatever happened to the woman who thought she would write a book and then you were so frustrated with her for not?
She never did.
Yet.
She never did. Yeah. So
right.
Yeah. So that's that's, I find that it's sad. It is sad, but it comes down to, I mean, she ended up moving away. She moved back to, I'm originally from Canberra, which is sort of the capital city here in Australia. So she moved back to Canberra, and I'm stayed up on the Gold Coast. So we've lost touch a little bit, but yeah, she's still just the mama.
Well, and it's interesting. I was talking to someone earlier, and actually I've talked to quite a few people about this, where the mind shift sometimes has to come with a health crisis, which is the worst way to approach it. But I understand, like, sometimes you can't hear the message until you are forced. And in a health, when you're not well, you can't do anything that you want to do. You're being forced to take that time, where if you could just approach it gently without being ill.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And like, my situation was similar. I didn't have like a health crisis, but mine was more like, a Mack truck. It's sort of like, it's either things have to change, or I'm divorcing my husband because it's all his fault.
Right.
And I just be happier on my own. Like that was the situation that I was in. And of course it wasn't his fault. Like, I had trained him to be the person that he was, and it was just an unconscious agreement. I did everything, he did what he believed was enough. And so that was the crisis for me. It was like, my marriage is about to end, and something needs to give. And so, yeah, but you're right. It's often a health crisis where we are forced to stop because our bodies can no longer take any more of the stress and the pressure that we put under it to do everything and be everything for everyone else.
And it's interesting, like, and you see it a lot where the divorce happens because, I mean, the perceived imbalance and the partner thinking, well, they never did anything to help me, and of course the partner didn't know. But and like you just said, to take control, I have to divorce and do this on my own. But then your job would be even bigger because then you're the mom with the kids and nobody even doing anything to help out. So
Yeah,
it doesn't get better. And I mean, one of the things I always encourage people to do, which is hard, 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 is to take responsibility for
yeah,
your own mental well-being, your own happiness. Like, the person with you isn't there to make you happy. They
yeah.
can make you happy, but that's not their their job.
Yeah, that's it. That's exactly right. And that's, I mean, the official title that I give myself is like an accountability and empowerment coach. And that accountability part is like you said, it's hard to do, but it's very important. And ultimately, we are all where we are because we chose to be there. We'd probably, some of those choices were probably unconscious choices, but
Mhm.
it is still a choice. And it wasn't until I sat down with a life coach of my own and all I did was complain about my husband. And she's like, you do realize that you chose to make his happiness your only priority. And I was like, what? No, it's his fault. She's like, no. Did you guys sit down and have a conversation whereby he said, you will make me happy? And I'm like, no. She goes, well, there you go then. Like, you chose. You chose to do that. And it was like a huge weight lifted off my shoulders. I'm like, oh my God, he's not the asshole that I thought he was. How about that then?
Are you still married?
Yes.
Oh, thank goodness. Right? And it's so interesting because I have had those conversations with people, and I think so, yeah, sometimes divorce is the right thing, right? Sometimes it is, you're just becoming compatible. But so
Yeah.
many times I've seen the partners blame each other for the situation, and I've wasted X years of my life, and I always say, well, were you chained? Were you held hostage? Like, what?
Yeah.
You were involved in that conversation, whether you had it out loud or not.
Yes. That's exactly right.
Wow.
That is exactly right.
Such a good question for your coach to ask you. So once she asked you that and you kind of went, oh my God, then what happened?
Then there was a conversation with my husband straight after that. It's like, okay, like, your happiness is not my responsibility. And of course he was like, what?
He has no
But yeah,
context, right? Suddenly you come home with this giant
yeah,
thought. He's like,
yeah.
why?
He's like, you're on
Warnings.
your own, pal. So there was that conversation, and he's like, well, no, of course you're not. Because I mean, that's the right response, isn't it? Like, no, of course you're not responsible for my happiness. But then there was years of work to retrain him, because of course, the next question is, what does that mean for me then? Like, if you're not going to be responsible for my happiness, who is? And I'm like, you. So so then it comes the retraining, and that's a hard slog. That is tough. Like, there's years and years and years of habits and patterns that are ingrained into our being. So that was then, and it's internal. Like, you're retraining yourself to change your behavior and change what you believe and change how you think, and the same for him. So yeah, so that was what happened next.
And relationships, like I had this conversation with my husband when we started dating. We had this book called The 100 Hard Questions that
Oh,
we,
yes.
right? We went through it actually just when we started dating. And I thought that was brilliant, first of all, that you get all those questions and so you get to know who the person is
Yeah.
before you decide to jump in all the way. But we always have these conversations that relationships aren't just like you sign on the dotted line and then you just carry on. They always
Yeah.
take work.
Yeah.
There's always work to be done. And that shouldn't seem like a detraction from having a relationship. That's kind of like the adventure of a relationship. It's a little bumpy sometimes, but so is life.
Yeah.
And when you haven't done that, and this is probably what you were alluding to, when you haven't done that like groundwork, and
Yeah.
it's like you've spent all that time and you've become so habituated in a way of being to suddenly go, hold on, that's not what I signed up for. We need to change the contract.
Yeah.
You need the lawyers in, you need them rewriting everything. And it's hard to change those
Yeah.
habits, right? Just think of any
Yeah.
habit you've tried to change, like not eating chocolate every night after dinner. That's a hard habit to change.
Yeah.
So changing your relationship habits takes good for you for slogging it out.
Yeah.
I mean, it
Yeah.
must have been fun to some to like it's has to be fun to some extent, or else nobody would do it, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And we kept having to remind ourselves that we were we both wanted the same thing out of this relationship. We wanted closeness. We wanted connection. We wanted fun. We wanted intimacy. We both wanted the same thing. So when we created a future vision of our relationship, for each other, when we were talking about this, it's like, well, I want this, and I want to be able to do this, and I'd like you to be, this is the role that I see you filling in this. And so we were both on the same page. It's just that we were like trying, to get there via very different paths. And so it's all about, that open communication, and trying to make sure that we were on the same sort of page, and both working towards the same thing.
How old were your kids when you started doing that?
Um, my kids were my boys were about 15, 16, and they're 20, 21 now.
Oh yeah.
Um, so yeah, and it's hard for them to understand as well. Um, I ended up going through a period where it's like, I just need a break. I'm moving out for a month. All right. I just need, this is hard work. Like the retraining my brain, the retraining his brain, it's hard work. And the resistance that I was feeling internally and externally, I was like, nah, we need time out. We need a time out. So yeah, and my boys, they took that hard. It's like, what? Like, why are you doing this? Like, this is like this is wrong. I'm like, no, it's not wrong. I need some space. I need some space for my mental health. I need some space for me, and to help work this through. And so, because you don't realize that, when you train your children, that you're last, that, then when, it's not only your husband that is affected when you start, you know, starting to rediscover yourself, it's your kids as well, because you're now challenging their beliefs, the beliefs that you've created within them. You're now challenging them, and they're like, oh, hang on. And especially at that age, they're still sort of developing, their own beliefs and their own understanding of how, the boy girl thing works. And so, yeah.
And it is interesting. I can remember so there's 6 years between me and my baby brother, and he came to live with me for a little while. And he would come home and say, "What's for dinner?" And I'd say, "Whatever you're making," because he was so used to being home and saying to my mother, "What's for dinner?" Poof, dinner would appear. I'm like, I'm
Yeah.
not your mama, and I am not taking care of you. So I think that was a bit of a wake up for him that I wasn't going to just step in. And I have seen relationships where it seemed like husbands just wanted a mama, but
Yeah.
that's a whole other topic.
That
That's a
is
whole other topic.
absolutely, that is,
We're
yes.
talking about how to make moms give themselves permission to be on
Yeah.
top of their own to-do list.
Yeah.
And it's so once I think once someone can step into that place, whether they're mother or not, like anybody, once you can make yourself the priority and on top of your to-do list and be okay with that and not feel guilty about it and find the things that recharge you, you have so much more capacity for the things you actually want to do.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And like, you hear this term thrown around a lot. It's like when you fill your own cup, then you have a greater capacity to pour into other people, because we are so often like running on empty and still slogging it out to, try and do everything for everyone. And and on some level we're failing, like we're not giving everybody 100% of us, because there's not 100% to give.
If you don't have it to give, I mean, you're not going to be able to give what, and you'll always judge yourself on, I should have been better
Yeah.
because this,
Yeah.
so you're judging yourself on not being able to give it all, and you don't have anything left to give. So there's your double whammy. And
Yeah.
um, and I mean, your relationships suffer, your health suffers, everything suffers because you aren't just doing, it sounds simple. You're not doing the simple thing of taking care of
Yeah.
yourself. I know
Yeah.
it's not simple, but there are ways to make that happen in your life,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
We're proof. We're living proof.
We are. Absolutely, we are.
You can do it. Now, if people want to find you, where do they find you?
Instagram's my favorite platform. I tend to be on there every couple of days. So find me on Instagram at Tanya Marie Coaching. I also have a website, which is tanyamariecoaching.com. So I'm sure you pop it into the
Yes, it's in the
into the
show notes.
notes, into the
I'll
show notes,
I'll make sure
wherever
we
they
have.
are.
Depends on what platform they're on. It'll be everywhere that this can be consumed. There will be show notes for everyone. So
Awesome.
that
Yeah.
so that they can call you up and go, "Tell me how you did it. Tell me how you got him to agree." Right?
That's it. That's it. That's it exactly. What do I
And
do?
what do I do? He's not listening. Well, there's ways.
There
So,
is.
I'm always curious. Do you have a final word of wisdom for our friends out there?
My final word of wisdom is just, it's not a choice between your family and your kids. You can do both. You can find your own unique balance, and you can be more than a mama.
More than a mama. Mic drop. Yay. That's
I'm
awesome.
out.
Thank you, Tanya, so much for coming and hanging out and sharing your story, because I mean, so much can be learned from hearing how people got to where they are.
Yeah.
And thank you for being open to sharing that. I appreciate that very much.
Thank you for having me. I've absolutely loved this chat, Heather. It was wonderful. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you. And my friends out in podcast land, take care of yourselves, okay? Have a great day. I will see you again soon. Hi, my friend. Thanks so much for listening to this entire podcast. If you found it useful and you're like me and you like helping others, please feel free to share this. Give it a like, give it a comment. If you found something useful in it, there's a chance that someone else will find something useful as well. Also, if you have any questions at all, I can absolutely help, and I would love to help. You can email me at heather@prosperityflowcoaching.com. If you want more of this awesome content, You can follow me on Instagram, Heather Stewart Coaching. You can follow me on Facebook, Prosperity Flow Coaching. And I have a personal request. I want to help as many people as I can with these podcasts. And if you could give me a review, hopefully a good one, if you could share, if you could send this out into the world, I would truly appreciate it. I hope you have an amazing day, and I hope that you find your way to wellness by getting back to me. Take care, my friend.